we're going to demonstrate and talk about the history of it. Although the history is kind of all over the place. There's a lot out there. I did my best to kind of condense it. And hopefully I picked the right things that actually are true. Because it's one of those things where you read something somewhere and then you read another thing somewhere else and you try to guess which one's right. I don't know. But it's all fun. And it's whatever I tell you is out there as far as what the history is. So, but I would love it if any of you have made this bread, made Stollen, or you have experience with it, if it's part of your family, because I did mostly of my research. My husband's German, but it was not a thing for his family, so he didn't have much input. So I would love if anybody has their own experiences to just chime in and tell us what you know, because there's a lot of neat things about this bread with tradition, and I have a video I'll show you as well. So without further ado, there's my. I'll be doing that a little bit here. So let me stop sharing my screen rather, and we'll get started. So has anybody made this Stollen? Has anybody made this spread, this dessert bread?
I considered making it once until I read the ingredient list. I was like, forget it, I'm buying it. Whole Foods has a good one.
Yeah. Yes, but they can be expensive, I believe. Do you remember?
$10 for a small loaf.
Yeah. So that might inspire you, right? But yeah.
Probably not.
Well, I found a recipe. So when you go out and look for recipes for Stollen, it's just like the history as far as I'm concerned. It was, well, even more all over the place than the history. There are so many versions and options and how authentic they are or not, or whatever. I even saw one that was more of a quick bread, but I was like, no, I'm not doing a quick bread, which means not using yeast. We are using yeast today. It is traditionally a yeast bread. So it is from Germany. And we'll talk more about that in a minute here, but I'll tell you what I did. I found a recipe called Traditional Stollen, but it's from Taste at Home. So it's not like it was a German website, but it does say that from the person that sent the recipe, this recipe came from my grandmother and was originally written in German. She says it's one of my favorite treats at the holidays. So, you know, I thought it was a good mix of maybe traditional and a little bit easier. It's much easier than a lot of the recipes I saw. So maybe if you're tempted to try it, you'd try this one because it's really not that hard. And I'll send this in the notes after class. You'll get this recipe. Okay, so this is how I did it. And like I said, chime in if you have any other tips or suggestions. I actually do use a mixer for a little bit, which I never really do with yeasted breads, but the way the ingredients are, it just seemed to be easier because there is some pretty funky ingredients in this bread, and we'll talk about that. So first, we're going to activate this yeast a little bit, which is the way they have you do it is just put 2 tablespoons of water in this large bowl, and it's warmer water. Does anybody know why it's maybe a little warmer water when I'm putting the yeast in? Whole packet of yeast.
Well, it activates it.
Yes, yeah. Helps activate it. Yep. You know, it's not required, but if it's colder water, it's just going to take a long time for that yeast to activate. So it's nice when you have a nice, warm, cozy temperature in your liquids, if possible, like the milk is a little bit warmed up as well. Not much. If you go over 120 degrees, which if you are new to yeasted breads, I do recommend you take the temperature of your liquids so you can feel from either tap water or whatever. You can kind of feel what temperature is a good temperature, so you're not always. Am I still sharing? By the way, that's why I got distracted. No, I'm not sharing. Okay, good. So you can kind of guess. You don't always have to measure your temperature, but it does help to get about. I usually do around 100 degrees. So that's what I try to aim for when I'm trying to get my yeast nice and started. So we put that in there, and you can already see the yeast starting to activate a little bit. It gets a little foamy, and you can watch them move. It's kind of interesting. It is live, right? So anyway, I won't do that all day, but it's kind of cool, especially if grandkids or something to kind of watch the yeast a little bit. It just kind of transforms. So then we're going to put in a cup of just 2%. I have 2% milk here. And put that in there.
Pam, there is a question from Donna in the lounge. Is it an instant yeast or regular?
Yes, I'm using instant. I think they said you could use what they want you to use. They just said active dry, and I'm using instant, so it'll be quicker. Either one's fine. It's just that if you don't use instant, it'll take longer to rise, but I'm using instant. I pretty much only use instant nowadays. So it never seems to fail. So I just like to, I'm usually time restrained, have a time restraint. All right. And then we have some softened butter. Three-quarters cups. So there's butter, quite a bit of butter in this bread. And in particular, this recipe. That's a stick and a half. So, and then we're gonna do a couple eggs and sugar. Here's the eggs. Got some eggs from the barn this time, which is always nice. I love fresh eggs. Couple of them. They look good. Get my trash out here. Forgot to get that ready. Okay, let me get my hands. And I'm going to beat those up a little bit or whisk them up a little bit so they don't go in the hole into the recipe. Break it up a little. So you can see there's quite a bit of fat in this bread. 2 eggs, all that butter. I guess the only other fat we'll add is some almonds, but still has fat, I guess. All right, and then we're going to do the sugar. And lemon zest. So here's this is always one of my favorites, right? The lemon zest. I wash the peel because we're going to use that. I always just use the peel for the zest. And what did it say we need? I always round up 1.5 teaspoons of grated lemon zest, but I love lemon in just about everything. So just gonna keep doing this. See, we have about a teaspoon and a half, a little bit more. Definitely an estimate when you try to measure this way because it kind of hangs on, it doesn't all slide to the bottom. All right, that's probably gonna do it. That'll look good. Let's scoop that in. All right. Sink, and there's a lemon. You can use this, to clean. Sometimes I'll wipe down the counter with it because it's, they say it disinfects a little bit, the lemon juice. So sometimes I'll just, when I have an extra lemon, I'll just wipe down the counters with it. Especially if I got a little egg on the counter, I'll do that too. So just a little tip there. All right. So let me see. I think I'm going to mix this for a little bit. Oh, and the salt. There is some salt. And I'll add that now. Never add salt at the same time as your yeast, because salt will kill your yeast. So I didn't do that. I put it in a lot later. And then I'm gonna get this going here, and then I'm going to start adding the flour. So this is where I'm going to do this. Well, that didn't go in all the way. Just a little bit, because I'm going to need it for the most part, but I just wanted to get it started. So that's why I did that, just a little bit with a mixer. And then this is 3 cups of flour. We're going to start with that. And we're going to need more for sure. It's a very, very soft dough, but you just don't want it to be too sticky, but it is very, very soft with all that butter and everything, that egg. It's a very, it's a nice feeling dough. It's very soft. It's not rough and tough like a lot of those, bread loaves I make. This is a very nice soft dough to work with. So it's kind of fun that way. All right, I'm going to stir it now with a spoon. Just to incorporate that flour, but not too much because I want to dump in or put in some of the accessories, you could say. So some recipes, let me check the chat before I finish here. Let's see. Oh, Donnie, you visited. Okay. Oh, great. You'll have to tell us about it when we get to that point of the class today, visiting a Stollen bakery near Dresden. Yes, we're going to talk about Dresden. That's a city in Germany. All right. Great. Oh, I'm glad. That'll be fun. Okay. So candied fruit. Has anybody used candied fruit or made any candied fruit before? Nikki, what have you made with candied fruit? Nikki? What'd you make, Nikki, with candied fruit? Did you say you'd made stuff with candied fruit? Nikki? Can you hear me?
I lost you for a second when I was trying to unmute. I'm sorry. Yeah, I make a fruitcake.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
with that with the candied fruit. Yeah, that's the only other thing I can think of. Anybody else have any other recipes they've used candied fruit for? No. The lid to the candied orange, what did I get? I got orange peel, candied orange peel. It came with a recipe for orange dream cupcakes. So that was nice. There's another way you could use it. I think they just put it in the cupcake and then sprinkled the frosting with some of the candied fruit. So there's an option, I guess. You could do that. You could decorate with it for sure. But today's going in the Stollen. So we're going to put in some raisins though. This is 3/4 cups of raisins, I believe. And sometimes you'll see recipes that have you soak them in rum, even overnight for a very long time. We're not doing that today, but this is just plain raisins. But you might see that in a lot of recipes that they used rum and they soaked them in that. That obviously would give the bread a whole different flavor. All right, so I mixed basically a regular old mix of candied fruit. This is the old candy, in case you have bought this before. This is one way you can find it, all chopped up small. I've seen it in bigger pieces as well. I liked the smaller pieces for this, I guess just because it's what they had in the store. So that's what I say I like. No, but you can find them in bigger pieces. I didn't see it in the store. So this will work fine. All right, and then we're also going to add some almonds. This says chopped up, but I have slivered almonds, which I kind of like to have in breads, especially when it's a little bit fancier. So I'm using slivered almonds in this recipe today. And we're just going to mix it up. And this will go by feel, really, as far as how much more flour you want to add. And it might take a little practice. If you're a baker, bread baker, it might be a little easier to tell, although you don't want it to be too tough, too floury. You still want to keep the softness, like I was saying. So it's not like your typical sandwich bread when you're putting it all together. And I'm going to be just incorporating everything. And you can see it looks pretty wet. This is definitely not ready to get kneaded. We need to do that to get it into its shape. So I've got my flour ready to add a little more. I'll just keep going till it's kind of pulling off the sides easily. And at this point, I'm probably going to get my hands dirty here and just do it with my hands so I can feel when I think it's ready. It's easier for me that way. But I need quite a bit. So that was 3 cups. It says, I think it says to about 4.5 or so, depending on how it is where you are. Drier days make a huge difference for when it's dry outside. For how much flour I need. I don't need as much flour when it's really dry out. If it's humid out, sometimes I'll need more flour. It really affects my baking. I've noticed, at least where I live now. So I have to, you can pay attention to humidity. Also affects how quickly your bread will rise. If it's cold out or really dry out, that might slow down the rising time. But if it's real humid and warm, it really can pick up the rising time. So I like to bake on those days so that it can be quicker. And you can see it's still sticking to my hands quite a bit. So I'm going to keep adding that flour. And ignore the number. If you're going way over what it says you need, but it just isn't feeling, like it's finished yet with flour, just keep adding. You don't have to be stuck with that number they put on the recipe. Sometimes I've added almost twice the amount of flour to some recipes, especially if I'm switching out the flour for a different one. But you don't have to stick with what it says. You just get to know it by feel sooner or later. Or it could be a lot less than what it says. I don't usually get that. I usually get writing more. It's a little bit better here. Not quite done though, because I want to get it onto the counter so that I can actually start kneading. So right now I'm just mixing. But it's a little bit of a knead too, because you can see I'm pushing down, trying to get everything together here. Okay, I think we're going to be ready to take it out onto the counter. But it's still pretty soft and pretty wet. So get some more flour. Yeah, I've got one. It's in one piece though, that's good. Okay. Make sure no dough went in there. So we're just gonna kind of do this. I think it said just a gentle knead. And you just knead until it's smooth and elastic, it says. So I'm just gonna do it. I just did it gently. I might go a little bit more this time because it wasn't real. I do have a finished loaf, I'll show you. It didn't rise a whole lot. I gave it plenty of time, so I'm not sure if it didn't get enough kneading or something. So, and actually this recipe makes 2 loaves. So you'll have plenty to share. So here's better kneading, and you'll see it starts to stick, but just be careful you're not getting it too dry. So it's a delicate balance. Okay, we're looking pretty good there. Don't think I should need much more flour at this point. I'll get into a nice shape. No, you know, I'm gonna do it one more time because I kind of tore it there. All right. And then I need to get a bowl. This is how I get it to a ball like that. And there's your dough. Just make sure it keeps its shape, which it is, I believe. So I'm going to get a bowl out, and then I'm going to put a little dab of oil on the bottom, and then roll that ball around in it, so that as it rises in the bowl, as it kind of rises in the bowl and dough starts to get around it and goes around, you know, is hitting the bowl, you don't want it to stick. So it's nice to have everything oiled so that doesn't happen, so that when you take it out, it doesn't tear like crazy. So the way I do it is I just use something like a canola oil. That's fine. I probably wouldn't use olive oil because olive oil does have more of an actual taste that olive oil tastes. I just like to stick with a very bland canola oil. Avocado oil will be fine. And I just put a little bit on the bottom and then swish it around a little bit. And make sure it's not too much. It's a little too much. That's why I put it in first. So I'm going to take out a little bit with a paper towel. You just want a real light coating. And then I'm going to take the ball. Just do that. Just a very, very light coating. Sometimes I put too much oil and it actually is really oily and kind of wet. I didn't like what it did to the dough. So I'm very careful just to put a little bit. And then, so now it's around the entire ball. So if it starts to stick a little bit, there'll just be a little bit, a very light stick to the side of the bowl here. And it won't stick to what I put on top of it as it rises. I think it's going to hit this for sure. This is a shower cap, a disposable shower cap that you can buy in packs of like 100. Like, I don't know, what a few, but I don't remember. I can't remember. I don't think it was more than $10 for all these shower caps. And that's how I do it. And then I have a proof button on my oven, so I can proof this in the oven. And it took at least 2 hours, but we're in kind of the winter, so it does take longer here anyway. But even with instant yeast, it took at least that long, if I recall. So, and then you have to let it rise again, but I'll talk about that in just a minute. But here is, it's all here, all set to go. So you can see it's actually very, very easy preparation, at least in this recipe. Actually, I'll just put it back. I don't have to put it into the oven right away. So that was what I found to be the nicest balance of authentic and easy for Stollen. Any comments or questions on that part? It's almost like a quick bread, right? Except you have the yeast and you have to knead it a little bit, but ingredients are very similar to me.
Yeah, it looked really easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you made it look
I
really
want-
easy.
Tom, I want to ask, the bread, you don't put oil inside. Oh, you put butter. Oh, butter is oil. Oh, inside put butter. Oh,
Yeah, butter's on the, yes, in the bread. A lot of butter is in the bread. And oil, just coating the outside of it with oil. Yeah. So it won't stick.
you don't put on the walnuts.
I didn't
I
use
use-
walnut.
Oh,
I used almonds, and that seems to be more common for Stollen was almonds.
that.
But
Okay.
walnuts you certainly could do. That would be a substitute you could do. Yeah, yeah. Pecans.
Yeah.
I mean, I think any of them
Yeah.
would be nice. So
Pam, Mary has raised her hand.
oh, hi Mary. Yes.
Hi, I have a Stollen recipe that my mother got, I think, from her grandmother, who was from Germany. And it's unique in that you make mashed potatoes and you use the potato water, let it cool down enough to put your yeast in it. Then you mix it all together and you put it in the refrigerator to rise for at least 24 hours or so. Very unique. And then instead of mixing all the ingredients in, she would roll it out and then put your candied fruit and other fillings, roll it up and then slice it like pinwheels and let that rise in a round tin. So it made like a fruit cake as opposed to a bread. So I tuned in today because I want to see how to do it as bread. So I have that option with
Yeah,
mine.
this is definitely more like a bread. Yeah. But I wonder, did that sitting for that long, did it have like an incredible flavor when it would,
Yeah.
you know, for hours? Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be.
And you can
Potatoes.
keep it in the fridge for several days and just take out, like she would make a batch each day through the Christmas week for us.
Yes, it does keep a long time. I've read that everywhere. They say Stollen can last a while. So yeah, yeah. Well, that's neat. I had not come across them that had potatoes. So that's really interesting. I do. There are different ways of. I've seen of not rolling it, but other ways of putting in a marzipan rope. If has anybody heard of that with the Stollen bread? That's a common, yeah, that's a common thing. You'll see it when I'll show you that. I think they have it in the video where you can see the marzipan rope. It's basically, let me think of when they put it, when you take it out after it's risen, I'll show you the loaf here. When it's still a dough, you can see how this is where, see, it didn't rise very well, I don't think, but this is basically what you'll get after you divide that in half and put it in this shape, and then you'll get two of these, and then it rises again for about an hour. So I'm not sure why it didn't rise better, but otherwise it turned out very well. I mean, I got the right everything else, I guess. I didn't put icing on it yet. I was going to do that today. But so what I was going to say is you fold this over to where you leave about an inch, it said, at least in the directions I was reading. And so, and then the seam, I didn't seam it hard enough, I guess, on this particular loaf, but so that you've got that little line here. Because does anybody know what this is supposed to look like or resemble, I should say, or what kind of means? There's a reason why you'll see it in this shape.
Is it the baby wrapped in the blanket? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Baby Jesus, swaddled or wrapped in the blanket. Yeah. So that's why you'll see them shaped like that. So yeah, and what you'll sometimes see is a rope of marzipan, which I don't even know how you do that. I didn't get into the marzipan part of it. And you put it in there and then you fold it, I believe, and you'll have, when you cut into it, then you'll get this chunk of marzipan throughout the loaf. So you might see that in some recipes, or a Stollen you might have seen with that yellow stuff or whitish stuff in the center. It's marzipan. So all right, and every recipe I read said optional, so that's why I opted, since it was my first time. I didn't really want to go too fancy, but that seemed like a lot of marzipan too. A big chunk of marzipan seemed like it'd be a lot of flavor. All right, so then we just do some icing. You can do just confectioner's sugar. You can just sprinkle it with sugar on top. You can also make it into an icing and put that on top, and that's what I'll do today. So icing, this is just confectioner, the powdered sugar, and I think it's 1.5 cups, and it's about 2 tablespoons of milk is what we're going to do for that. And I've learned never pour directly into that, because if you're too much, it's hard to come back. It's well, look at me, I'm just pouring right over it anyway. So I always try to remember to pour to the side very carefully. It's about a little bit at a time. Okay, oops. We'll start with that. You can always add. And I just like to kind of drizzle it on. But they have it pretty well coated with icing that I've seen in the recipes. Well, it's dry out here today, I can tell you that, I can tell. I didn't need a whole lot of extra flour for the dough. And this is really gonna take, that's fine, we'll just add more. This is way more than what it said you might need. So you don't have to, like I said, go by look and feel, don't always have to be married to that recipe, because this is, I know I've done more than a couple tablespoons by now. But we're getting there. This is almost, actually, I'm gonna leave it thick on purpose because it just looks like it is in the pictures. So we'll see what I can do. I don't want it too thin. Almost thin. Okay. Let me just see. And you can just, I just like to do this when I put on icing. Just drizzle. Actually, I've got to put, if you were in my class where I made those mini muffins or mini cupcakes, that Christmas bread, I froze those and I've got to take them out today and put icing on them because I have to take them to an event tomorrow. But I froze them that same day once they got to room temperature, and they should be pretty fresh tasting because I froze them as soon as I could. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Mary, did they have icing? Did your mom put icing on hers? Was Mary still
Yes,
here?
she did. She would do icing. She would add butter and vanilla to the confection of sugar, but drizzle it like that.
Yes, vanilla would be good. Yep. And butter. Nice. All right, let me just get this. Yeah, don't go too thin because it'll just melt right into the bread. Make sure your bread is cooled off. If it's warm, this icing will just melt right into it. All right. So probably could have put parchment paper underneath that. That's okay. We'll just clean this right up. So there is Stollen now with icing on it, and that'll just get nice and hardened by the end of class, I'm sure. And then you just slice it up like that, which I'll probably take that to another event we have. It's that time of year, so I'll put in slices and let people. I better taste test it first, but you never know. First time for recipe is always kind of, yeah, you gotta make sure it's okay. I have taste testers at home that'll help with that. So, all right. So now, that's that. Any other questions as far as how far we are with how to make this Stollen? Okay, pretty straightforward for that recipe, as I was mentioning. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty of this bread though, and see what this is all about, because it's pretty neat. Okay. So presentation is the Stollen. They do seem to wrap them very nicely, very decoratively, and so they can last long as well. There's so that was just one example I found of how they've wrapped their Stollen. And in the stores, it's just a unique packaging, really, I find, for Stollen bread as well. So, and then, okay, this is what I found. If anybody else has some information, feel free to chime in. But it dates back to the 14th century, this bread, but it was a lot different back then. Why they made it was Germans baked the Stollen loaves at Christmas. They honored princes and church dignitaries, and to sell at fairs and festivals for holiday celebrations. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the shape, you fold over dough with a white top layer. So, well, there we go. That must be why there's icing maybe for the white top layer. I didn't even think of that. Symbolic of baby Jesus wrapped in swaddling clothes. So that's why there's the white icing or white topping. So, all right. And something else. It is a yeasted fruit bread of nuts, spices. There weren't any spices in this one. I have seen some other spices like a ginger spice. I've seen some cinnamon. Even the rum gives it a flavor, different flavor. But and dried fruit or dried or candied fruit coated with powdered sugar or icing often contains that marzipan I was telling you about. And the first recipes didn't have milk, and it used oil instead of butter, because in the 17th century, a papal proclamation allowed for milk and butter. I believe it had something to do with that time of year that it wasn't allowed because of the holidays to use butter and milk, but the Pope then said it was okay to do that, so they could start making the bread with the butter and milk. That's what I read a couple places, so I hope that's correct. But that's why it was so different way back in the old day. Wasn't nearly as what I would say flavorful, probably, that you couldn't use milk or butter, and it was like oats and water. It was really bland. All right, so Dresden. Okay, Donna, we'll have to get your experience on this. Do you want to talk about it before I have a little video describing the Stollen Fest. Were you there around that time, or?
Well, yes, I went to, it was a German market festival tour. So,
Okay.
we, went outside, had the chance to go visit. It was the, I brought it up because I kind of forgot, Dresdner's Stollen Bakery right outside Dresden.
Yeah.
That was
okay.
a lot of fun. We got to tour. Of course, everything was, sold out and made in advance by that time. But I definitely developed my taste for Stollen.
Going. Well, can you eat it here though, since you got to have the real thing in Germany? Is it a lot different here, or is it?
I've been, I think so. I mean, it's, depending on who is baking it, of course. There's
Yeah.
German bakeries here, so.
Okay. Good.
But I even found some Trader Joe's, which is part of, there's a German grocery store that's I don't know, a collaboration of Trader Joe's with ownership. So they have a lot of German flavored, and
Okay.
they had a really good, it was one time only, and they didn't have in stock for future. I just happened to grab it and took it home a couple of years ago. It's like
So that was probably a little more authentic, you would think, given the German.
But it was a little bit different than, I wasn't ever a fruitcake fan, but it brought my attention. I mean, it was a little bit different. And I love German breads and baked goods.
Yeah, there's very good bakeries, Germany, yeah.
I've
Okay.
kind of forgotten. I'm glad that you had this because I've forgotten the history of it. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Oh yeah, no, there's lots to talk about. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, this Dresden here, and there's Stollen Fest. You can see this. I think is the video we'll start with first. Maybe this will bring back some memories for if you've been to Germany during this time. But here, let's see here. So who's hungry? There's a giant Stollen at Dresden Christmas market. Watch this. Let's see here. Oh, it just ended here. I'll just replay it. Okay.
Visitors browsing the Christmas market in Dresden have got more than they bargained for. A giant piece of Stollen. Stollen is the German Christmas cake, which Dresden is famous for. To mark St. Nicholas Day, a giant version of the cake was displayed in the old city centre. Tens of thousands of people watched the 3-ton Stollen cake being carried on a horse-drawn carriage as it made its way to the Streitzelmarkt, the Christmas fair for the annual Stollenfest. The cake was cut by the head baker with a Stollen knife, measuring 1.2 metres. Slices of this traditional cake then went on sale for a good cause. 65 bakers were busy for 3.5 weeks, stirring, tasting and baking the giant masterpiece. More than 1 ton of flour, 750 kilograms of butter, 200 kilograms of sugar and 1.5 million sultanas were used, as well as many litres of Jamaican rum. The Dresden Christmas Market, or Streitzelmarkt, has been held annually since 1434 and is named after an old word for Stollen, first mentioned in the early 14th century.
So there you go. It's a little bit of history. They're kind of fun. Yeah. So quite a big Stollen. I don't know how they do that, how they bake it, how they manage that, how they carry it. And I think, did anybody else think they saw some marzipan in that slice that boy was eating? I was trying to look to see if there was some marzipan. So I think there might have been. I maybe not. It kind of blends in. So, all right. So that's Dresden. That's the known Stollen. And there's actually, I'll show you this first, actually, the Stollen seal that they have to show that it's from Dresden. It's the golden Stollen seals. Anybody seen a loaf with that? Ever gotten a loaf with that?
Besides me.
Yeah. Seen it.
I have, that's it. all the memories are, yes, like,
Flooding
oh,
back.
yeah. I was able to, we were have tea and coffee with our Stollen, right there in the bakery.
Neat.
Oh, it was delicious.
Yeah, so those of you looking to get Stollen as a gift, now pressure's on to find one with that seal. I wonder how much that costs to get one with a seal, but so EU quality label, it's a big deal. So
Well, I have German cousins, so I wait for my German treats.
oh, nice, very nice. Yeah, they ship well from what I'm told. So let's see. All right, so Stollen Fest, you kind of got a glimpse of it with that video, but this is his whole website I'll send your way if you're just curious. There's a lot of information on this website as far as the history, the celebration, different pictures. There was one I found, a video I found, I don't know what it was fun. I was going to show it, but it's the bakers that were doing almost a flash mob dance in the street. I think it was just open up the Stollen Fest. It was really kind of cute. They were all in these baker uniforms and getting ready for Stollen Fest. It was really something. So it's a huge deal there. But you can see all these pictures of the Stollen Fest. I'm not sure. I think that's of slice, but I don't think it's from the same day that we just saw. But well, there it is. There's the huge mountain of Stollen. It looks like a big mountain in there. And there's the horses bringing it in. Stollen Fest. And there's the city center where they're coming in, it looks like. Yeah, Donna, I'm sure you've seen this.
I wonder how they baked that gigantic thing, or they did it in parts, I wonder. Did it say?
They do have the icing to cover up any, slices. So maybe that is how they do it.
Oh, they probably 1,000 different loaves.
I know, yeah. No wonder they were dancing in the streets. They just finished their last, maybe they finished their last loaf. I'd be dancing in the street with all that going, oh my goodness. And just here's a glimpse of German bakery bread. Germany is, their bakeries there are phenomenal. I've never been there, but I've definitely read and seen and watched videos. It looks incredible. So if you're ever in Germany, get to a bakery. But here it is. And I guess they're carrying signs. I'm not sure. I don't know German. I'm not sure what. I'm trying to look and see what they might say. But signs saying something for the Stollen Fest here. There's a slice. Let's see if we can see the marzipan. I don't see the marzipan. Just lots of icing on the top. And there's some sort of outfit they wear. And there's Kris Kringle. Or St. Nick, well, Kris Kringle, yeah, and St. Nick Day. That's usually here. It's December 6th. I don't know if that's everywhere, but and there's this big, yeah. So that's yeah, the Stollen Fest, Stollen seal. And I think that's all I had for